Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha, Radha, Shama Sundara, oh hey. Jai Krishna. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jai Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Goranita Jaya, Goranita Jaya, Goranita Jaya, Goranita. Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Next, from last week, a spiritual leader. To them, he was a hometown cousin who had done something successful in America. Narendranath Mulak, a childhood friend of Prabhupada's, called Prabhupada Dada, brother, and regularly joked with him. The Mulaks were glad to give Prabhupada and his 2 followers a large room in the temple compound for as long as they wanted to stay in Calcutta. Prabhupada set up his usual arrangement, a mat on the floor and a low table for a desk, and beside the desk, his few possessions. Here he would study and write, receive guests, or rest. Daily, some local women brought Prabhupada and his disciples simple prasad in a tiffin. The Kali Puja celebrations drew large crowds into the main hall before the Kali deity, and Prabhupada gave regular lectures there from Srimad Bhagavatam. He also spoke in the homes of various Mulak families. The hosts, members of the dwindling Bengali aristocracy, would offer Prabhupada and his disciples Radha Govind prasadam, cut fruits, water chestnuts, minced ginger, and soaked salted mung beans. Most of those who came to visit Prabhupada in his room were not really interested in spiritual life, but they wanted blessings. Who doesn't? There was a local Brahmin, and boy, could Srila Prabhupada give them. Phew. There was a local Brahmin whose occupation was to go from shop to shop, carrying a few flowers, a cup of water, and a brass container with sandalwood paste and kumkum powder. Using this paraphernalia, he would offer a blessing to the shopkeepers every day and receive a few paisa in payment. Knowing Prabhupada to be a Vaishnava, the Brahmana came to see him to receive a spiritual benediction. The man's forehead was decorated with both Vaishnava tilak, 2 vertical lines, and the Shaivite tilak, 3 horizontal lines. After the man left, Achyutananda asked Swamiji, "Who was that?" He is a hired Brahmin, Prabhupada said. When he goes to the Vaishnavas, he gives them blessings, and when he goes to the Shaivites, he gets money. He has to make a living. Prabhupada was practical. Krishna. Another man came asserting that he wanted to teach Prabhupada. He asked Prabhupada to help him get to America, but Prabhupada told him, "You must take sannyas. Then I will bring you to America." After 2 visits, the man stopped coming. A Mullik relation, a small, bald, bright-eyed, wearing a book entitled Interesting Studies. He posed philosophical questions, simple inquiries about karma, jnana, and bhakti, but then would interrupt Prabhupada and answer them himself. Finally, when the man asked one of his questions, Prabhupada replied, "So what is your answer?" The man gave a general answer, but later when Prabhupada began explaining that Lord Krishna, the speaker of Bhagavad Gita, is the Supreme Personality of... Call him Shiva, call him... No, Prabhupada said, Krishna is the Supreme Lord and all others are demigods. The man became a little nervous and quoted a popular Bengali impersonalist who taught that all gods and all methods of worship are the same. "He's an upstart," Prabhupada said. "That is not the teaching of the Gita. What is this other teaching? It is all utter confusion." "If you go on speaking like this," the man said angrily, "I'll have to leave this place. Please don't criticize this Paramahansa." "Why not?" Prabhupada said. "He is a concoctor." The man got up and left, calling out, "You don't know Krishna." As he left, time you introduce Krishna, they say, "Why only Krishna?" But that is what Krishna says, Mati parataram nanyat. There is no truth superior to me. These rascal impersonalists have ruined Bengal. One day a man gave Prabhupada a 200 rupee donation, and Prabhupada immediately asked the pujari for an old set of Radha Govinda clothes, gave the clothes to some of the temple ladies along with the 200 rupees, and asked that the ladies make gold embroidered dresses for Radha Govinda. Just see. He cared so much about Radha Govinda. That occurred to me after reading last week's visit. Srila Prabhupada visited Radha Govinda, and he was aggrieved at their condition, their neglect. He was very much grieving. And it made me realize how at that moment, Srila Prabhupada was conceiving MVT, the Mayapur Vrindavan Trust, and he was putting his money aside to make sure that the deities would never be neglected. He kept that fund to make sure that the deities would never be neglected, and that fund must always be there in case there is a lean time. And it made me see this was the moment. He was surprised to see his childhood beautiful deities in this shape. So as soon as he could, what does he do immediately? He sets out to give them some beautiful ornamentation, even taking the old things and making them fresh. Just see, our Srila Prabhupada is so sweet. And he said, Radha Govinda are taking care of us, and he said, so we take care of them also. Ramanuja's beard was huge. Looking like an ordinary hippie, he misrepresented Srila Prabhupada wherever they went. Prabhupada told Achyutananda, tell your friend to shave. Achyutananda and Ramanuja talked, but Ramanuja wouldn't shave. Wanting Ramanuja to agree on his own, Prabhupada didn't ask him again. But when a copy of the latest Back to Godhead magazine arrived from the States, Prabhupada got an idea. 2 illustrations in the magazine showed Haridas Thakur converting a prostitute. After her conversion, the prostitute had shaved her head. Showing the pictures to Ramanuja, Prabhupada asked, what is the difference between this picture and that picture? I don't know, Swamiji, Ramanuja replied. No, Prabhupada said, pointing to the pictures. What is the difference in this picture? Oh, she's a devotee. Yes, Prabhupada said, but what else? Oh, she has shaved her head. Yes, Prabhupada smiled, a devotee has a shaved head. Do you want me to shave my head? Yes. Just see how clever he leads him into it. Like a sweet child, he gets him to come to the conclusion. Ramanuja shaved, but within a few days he began growing his beard and hair back. From now on, Prabhupada told Achyutananda, no more cheap imitations. They have to know something. Ramanuja hung on. Prabhupada wanted Ramanuja and Achyutananda to remain in India after his departure and continue to try for the American house in Vrindavan. Ramanuja wrote, we were known as here the Anglesi temple. I remember when we first came in Atonga, when we came, and from the train station, and they were saying, Anglesi Mandir? They knew right away, taking a look at us, they wanted, it was 1976, and they knew right where we belonged. Hare Krishna. So Ramanuja wrote his own impressions to his friend Mukunda in San Francisco. Please be advised that we're doing all we can to get him off as soon as possible, but this primitive Indian government is putting obstacles in our way. The man who could have given Swamiji clearance for his P form has just drowned, so the clearance has to be made in Bombay. This is the delay. Here in Calcutta, we're having lots of fun addressing different people. Swamiji made Achyutananda and myself give a short speech. I'm becoming more and more expert at this. I think that he makes us speak in order to show the audience that we American Vaishnavas are for real. And also he wants everyone to preach Krishna consciousness. Even in the early days, Prabhupada called us student teachers. Whatever we heard, we were to repeat it. Whatever we knew, to share whatever Krishna consciousness we had. And if we do that, then he even told Jamuna that, and tomorrow is Jamuna's Tirabhav, so he even told, if you don't share Krishna consciousness, you'll lose it. So it is a gift that keeps on giving if you give it. So he wanted everyone to preach Krishna consciousness. It is very difficult to take care properly of Swamiji's health here. For one thing, it is a big thing to serve sweets in India, and it's impolite to decline. Also, we get all kind of visitors. We have not been able to go to bed before 11 o'clock, and Swamiji automatically wakes up at 3. In this respect, the people here are very inconsiderate. But if Achyutananda and I ask them to leave, they will ask Swamiji if they should, and Swamiji, of course, says no. Anyway, his heartbeat is a little fast, and sometimes it is alarmingly fast. So I suggest that you get a good heart specialist to see him. Please arrange for this doctor, and above all, make sure that Swamiji gets plenty of rest. You need not restrict visitors too strictly, because if the company is good, Swamiji seems to enjoy visitors. Please do all you can to get Swamiji's beat to normal again. His chariot needs to be fixed up so he can remain on this earth for at least another 10 years. Knowing that Swamiji would soon be returning, the devotees in America began to increase their entreaties, each group asking him to come to their particular city. On November 4th, Prabhupada wrote, "Mukunda, as you say that my absence is being felt now surely more deeply than ever, so I also feel to start immediately without waiting." And to Mukunda's wife Janaki, he wrote, "Every minute I think of you, and as you asked me to go to San Francisco while returning from India, I am trying to fulfill my promise. I am thinking of going directly to San Francisco." At the bottom of the same letter to Mukunda and Janaki, Achyutananda added a health report. Swamiji is looking healthy and living and working regularly, but his pulse rate is generally too fast. Last night it was 95, unusually fast even for him, as it generally hovers between 83 and 86. Prabhupada decided not to wait any longer on the chance that Mukunda might secure him permanent residency. "I want to return to your country where there is good air and good water," he told Achyutananda one day. "Every day we are receiving letters that the devotees want me there. I thought that in my absence they might deteriorate, and I was reluctant to even come to India, but now I see that it is growing. There is a need for me to go and supervise the expansion, so I want to go back. The only impediment now seems to be a delayed P form, a clearance from the Bank of India required for an Indian citizen traveling abroad. I am just ready for starting for America, but as you know, our competent government is very slow in action. The P form was submitted almost a month ago, but still it is undergoing red tapeism." Prabhupada had the cutest little ways of speaking, like it would invent words like skyscraper instead of skyscraper, and they would sound better, actually, the way that Srila Prabhupada said them than the ordinary way of speaking. They were endearing, your heart melted. Prabhupada had a way with the words. Red tapeism. The visa was granted to me within half an hour. The passage money was deposited within 2 days, but unfortunately the Reserve Bank of India is delaying the matter unnecessarily. I expect the P form at any moment, and as soon as I get it, I shall start for your country. Upendra. From when I was searching, one day I saw a leaflet that looked like a letter blowing in the wind, and I picked it up thinking that I was going to read someone's mail. It was a Stay High Forever leaflet. It said something about drop in, turn on, drop out, Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta. I thought, oh, a Swami. I pictured Prabhupada with long hair and a beard, but when I went to the temple at 518 Frederick Street and saw Prabhupada's passport picture in the temple window, I was aghast. He didn't look that way. I thought a Swami should look. He looked severe. I was scared. Later I heard that when someone said to Prabhupada that he didn't look happy in that photograph, Prabhupada said, "That was the most ecstatic moment in my life." It was my passport photo, and I was fulfilling Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's instructions to travel to the English-speaking. Just to make certain the Swamiji would come first to San Francisco, Mukunda sent a telegram to Calcutta. "Swamiji, Brahmananda and I agree. You start immediately. Advise exact arrival date. Mukunda." Prabhupada had planned his route through Tokyo, intending to stop for a day to probe if there were any possibility of starting a center. I remember when Sudama was coming through Hawaii, because Prabhupada said he would go back to Godhead for opening up Japan. It was difficult. It was hard. Meanwhile, he received good news from New York. Macmillan Company's interest in Bhagavad Gita was real. The contract was being drawn. Pleased with Brahmananda, he wrote to him on November 11th, explaining center. only like New York or San Francisco for propagating our cult all over the world. Let us stick to this publication of BTG more and more nicely and publish some Vedic literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc. As Prabhupada's mind turned more to the preaching that awaited him in America, he assessed what he had done so far, what he would do, and the process by which he would do it. Always planning in his service, always engaging his mind in devotional service. I am not in agreement with Mr. Altman that we are expanding very thinly. In my opinion, a single sincere soul can maintain a center. You know, I started the center in 26 Second Avenue alone. I took the risk of $200 per month for rent. At that time, there were no assistants. Mukunda was at that time a friend, and there was no responsibility for him for maintaining the center. Gradually, Kirtananda and Harigriva joined, but they did not take any responsibility. Still, I was maintaining the establishment simply depending on Krishna, and then Krishna sent me everything, men, money. Similarly, if a sincere soul goes out and opens a center in any part of the world, Krishna will help him in all respects. Without being empowered by Krishna, nobody can preach Krishna consciousness. It is not academic qualification or financial strength which helps in these matters, but it is sincerity of purpose which helps us always. Therefore, I wish that you, Brahmananda, will remain in charge in New York. Let Satsrup be in charge in Boston. Let Mukunda be in charge in San Francisco. Let Janardhan be in charge in Montreal. Let Nandarani and Dayananda be in charge in Los Angeles. And let Subal Das be in charge of Santa Fe. In this way, you will follow my example as I did in the beginning of 26 Second Avenue. That is preaching. Cooking, writing, talking, chanting. Everything's one man's work. I never thought about the audience. I was prepared to chant if there were no men to hear me. The principle of chanting is to glorify the Lord, not to attract a crowd. If Krishna hears nicely, then he will ask some sincere devotee to gather in such a place. Therefore, be advised that thousands of centers may be started if we find out a sincere soul for each and every center. This was the theme of that time. Prabhupada would train you a little bit and send you out to open a temple. He didn't, grow these big centers. It was a pioneer. And I know I say this all the time, but at the top of the letters, Prabhupada wrote Camp Hawaii. Camp, it wasn't like a permanent location. We were camping and preaching. So on November 12th, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Krishna Devi, I'm coming soon to San Francisco. I shall let you know the exact date sometime next week. I'm coming over very soon to see you when everything will be adjusted. Hope you are well. And the health notes from Achyutananda continued to arrive. Please tell the devotees out there to take good care of him. It is a very hard task trying to restrain him from overworking himself, but they must be strict. Good luck being strict with Prabhupada. Oh, that's something. He said he still has to take his medicines and get his massage every day. On November 20th, Prabhupada dispatched by boat to New York more than 800 copies of the first 3 volumes of his Srimad Bhagavatam. And on the next day, his P-form finally cleared. Immediately, he booked passage on Pan American Airlines and sent a cable informing Mukunda that he would arrive in San Francisco on November 24th at 12:45 p.m. But again, his departure was delayed by a strike by the Communist Party in Calcutta. Businesses closed. Cars, buses, rickshaws, and trains stopped running. Riots broke out. There were murders and assassinations. Meanwhile, Prabhupada remained at the Radha Govinda temple. My return to your country is already settled, but due to a petty revolution, just see how Srila Prabhupada sees these things, a petty revolution. In Calcutta, I'm not able to leave. Our San Francisco friends may be very anxious because I sent them 2 telegrams, one informing them of my arrival and the other canceling it. Future arrangements are pending. 2 weeks passed. While waiting in his room for the political strike to end, Prabhupada received a letter from Umapati, one of his devotees who he had initiated at the first initiation in New York in September of 1966. Umapati had given up practicing Krishna consciousness for half a year, but now he wrote to say he was back. Prabhupada replied, "It is my duty to deliver you the right thing in the right earnestness, and it is the duty of the receiver to act in the standard spiritual regulation. When you left us, I simply prayed to Krishna for your return to Krishna consciousness because that was my duty. Any good soul who approaches me once for spiritual enlightenment is supposed to be depending on my responsibility to get him back to Krishna." This is really huge right here. This right here. It isn't like by works or by any kind of wonderful things that we do. We simply please the spiritual master, follow his instructions, and by his mercy we go back. It's not that we did anything wonderful. This is a descending process. It's by the mercy of the spiritual master. Sometimes I think things are changing so that we're being more self-help and psychologically oriented instead of realizing that it's all coming from the mercy of Guru. There's what can we do? Unlimited lifetimes we're stuck in the material world, and we think by some chance we're going to get out by some doing something. No, it's by the mercy of Prabhupada. This is so huge. It's just here that Srila Prabhupada takes responsibility to get us back to Krishna, back to home. The disciple may misunderstand a bona fide spiritual master being obliged to do so under pressure of Maya's influence. But a bona fide spiritual master never lets go a devotee once accepted. When a disciple misunderstands a bona fide spiritual master, the master regrets for his inability to protect the disciple, and sometimes he cries with tears in his eyes. Just recently, we've been distributing the Srila Prabhupada deities, and I feel like Prabhupada's in an ambulance going out to his disciples, and he in his deity form, he got to my god sister Kandita just weeks before she left the planet. Prabhupada deity came to her. That Prabhupada deity, like an ambulance driver coming to her to fetch her, to take her back to Godhead. And this is how it is. It's just so amazing. We had an experience while my Guru Maharaj was alive. One of his disciples who accepted sannyas was one day forcibly dragged by his wife. My Guru Maharaj lamented with tears in his eyes, saying that he could not save the soul. We should always, therefore, be careful by being attacked by Maya's influence, and the only means of guarantee is to chant Hare Krishna offenselessly. When Prabhupada received news of quarreling in Los Angeles temple, he replied to Nandarani, "I know that my presence is very urgently required. Arrangement is already completed, and circumstances alone have checked my departure. Please, therefore, don't be worried. I'm coming to your place within a fortnight." See, like an ambulance, he's coming to the rescue. He's our Savior. He's coming to the rescue. We're quarreling, Prabhupada's coming. Hold on. And he traveled the world 9 times. I mean, just amazing how he kept all of his devotees inspired. I'm sorry. Saying, please, therefore, don't be worried. I'm coming to your place within a fortnight. At the end of the first week of December, the strike ended and Srila Prabhupada again booked passage. In those days, too, the flights often only went once a week. I mean, even when I first started to come to India, you could only, was once a week. You didn't have the everyday, you didn't have all these selections of flights. You will be pleased to know that I've purchased my ticket for New York via Tokyo and San Francisco. I am starting tomorrow morning at 9:30. By evening, reaching Tokyo via Bangkok and Hong Kong. I shall rest 24 hours in Tokyo on the 14th at night. I am starting for San Francisco. By local time, I am reaching San Francisco on the same day, the 14th, at 12:45 by PAA, Pan American Airlines, 8:46. Yesterday I've sent one telegram to this effect, and I hope I shall reach there safely as scheduled. He's very detailed, very detailed. I'm so glad to learn that Satyabrata and yourself are trying to get the teachings of Lord Chaitanya published. You do not know how pleased I am to hear this news. It was the first book I read in the summer of '69. I was so mesmerized by the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. You do not know how pleased I am to hear this news. When one book is published, I think I have conquered an empire. So try to publish as many books as possible, and that will enhance the beauty and prestige of our society. The impersonalist mission has nothing to say substantial, but because they have money and have published so many rubbish literatures, they have become very cheaply popular. You can just imagine how powerful our society will become when we have as many substantial literatures published. We should not only publish in English, but also in other important languages such as French and German. When the day for Prabhupada's departure finally arrived, he gave last instructions to Achyutananda and Ramanuja. Just pray to Lord Krishna that I can go to America, he requested Achyutananda. How can I, Achyutananda replied, you'll be leaving me. Oh, this is terrible. Prabhupada's asking him to do something impossible, to pray for him. No, Srila Prabhupada replied, we will always remain packed up together. If you remember my teachings, if you preach, you will become strong, and all these teachings will be in the proper perspective. When we stop our preaching, then everything becomes stagnated and we lose our life. Even here in India, people think that they know everything, but they are wrong. There is no end to hearing about Krishna. God is unlimited, and so one can say, I know everything about God, so no one can say, I know everything about God. Those who say they know everything about God do not know. So anyone will appreciate you. Do not fear. Prabhupada was fearless, so he would assure us in this way. Chutananda said, when I returned to the room after sending off Swamiji and paying my obeisances at the airport, I felt void. I felt very lonely and rather weak. I returned to the room in front of Sri Sri Radha Govinda and chanting on my beads, I started pacing back and forth. What will I preach? The black and white marble floor passed under me. I stepped on the cracks, in between the cracks, on the black and white marble again and again. Then I realized I wasn't seeing Radha and Krishna. So I sat down directly in front and saw the brilliant form of Radha Govindaji, and my eyes filled with tears. Srila Prabhupada spent his stopover in Tokyo mostly in going to the hotel and checking into a room, bathing, resting, eating, and returning to the airport the next day in time for his flight to San Francisco. But he did speak with the government secretary explaining that Krishna consciousness was a universal philosophy for reviving a person's original, eternal consciousness. And he explained the crucial need for Krishna consciousness in human society. The secretary, however, said he felt certain that the Japanese government wouldn't be able to help a religious movement. Prabhupada was annoyed. This supposedly educated man was so ignorant as to mistake Krishna consciousness for merely another sectarian religion. Prabhupada wanted intelligent men to try to understand Krishna consciousness and understand that the Gita was actual knowledge, transcendental knowledge, beyond the inferior knowledge of the senses and the mind. But he had his plane to catch. Japan would have to wait. The passengers and flight crew saw Prabhupada as an elderly Indian man dressed in saffron robes. The stewardesses weren't sure at first whether he spoke English, but when he asked them for fruits, he saw that he could, and that he was a kind gentleman. He was quiet, putting on his glasses, reading from an old book of Indian scripture for hours at a time, or moving his lips in prayer while fingering Indian prayer beads in a cloth pouch, or sometimes resting beneath a blanket, his eyes shut. No one knew or bothered to inquire into what he was doing. They didn't know that anxious young hearts were awaiting him in the San Francisco, or that the Macmillan Company in New York wanted to publish his English edition of the Bhagavad Gita, or that he had spiritual centers in 2 countries with plans for expansion all over the world. There's one really sweet story about a stewardess. They had puffed rice on the plane, and Prabhupada was eating the puffed rice, and then he gave some to the servants. And the stewardess had, it's just amazing. It kind of, something came over her, because you never would imagine this from a stewardess, but she took and she grabbed it and she ate some of the puffed rice. Later, she became a devotee in Australia, and she tells the story how she had seen Srila Prabhupada on the plane. We didn't know this. We knew the story because Shruta was there, and he tells the story. And then later, we heard her here in Vrindavan telling the story how she was that stewardess. Just a moment's association with the pure devotee, just a moment's association, and one's entire existence can change. I was doing community service here, and one fellow in an aloha shirt showed up, and he had been the stage manager at the Kennedy Center at the University of Hawaii, and he helped Prabhupada on the stage. He just helped him up onto the stage. He had a moment's association with Srila Prabhupada, and here he was in Vrindavan some 30, 40 years later. I was amazed because I was there at the Kennedy Center hearing Prabhupada, and there I'm just seeing how one moment's association with the pure devotee can change a person's life entirely. So okay, let's see. After a 10-hour flight, the plane landed in San Francisco. Standing with hundreds of other passengers, Prabhupada gradually made his way to the exit. Down the long, attached tunnel, even before he reached the terminal building, he could see Govindadasi and a few other disciples smiling and waving on the other side of the glass partition. As he entered the terminal building, he moved toward the glass, and his disciples dropped to their knees, offering obeisances. As they raised their heads, he smiled and continued walking down the corridor, while they walked alongside, only the glass partition separating them. Then they disappeared from his view as he walked down the stairway into immigration and customs. The downstairs area was also glassed in, and Prabhupada could see more than 50 devotees and friends waiting eagerly. As they again caught sight of him, they cried out as a group, "Hare Krishna!" We were known as the Hare Krishna people. Hare Krishna. Swamiji looked wonderful to see them, tanned from his 6 months in India. As Prabhupada stood in the line at the customs inspection point, he could hear the devotees' kirtan, the glass walls only partially masking the sound. The customs officials ignored the chanting, although the connection between the saffron-robed passenger and the joyful chanters was not hard to see. Srila Prabhupada waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples. In those days, you could go out practically to the plain, just, off of the plain, and it was like there was a bridge that came down to the tarmac, and then they would walk to, and you could see them, and they would walk to, we would be right there at the gate. One would have garlands. Srila Prabhupada waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples. Since he had already sent ahead the 800 books and several crates of musical instruments, he had only one suitcase to place on the table before the inspector. Methodically, the inspector went through the contents: cotton saris for girls, silk garlands for the Jagannath deities, kartals, saffron dhotis and kurtas, a coconut grater, and little bottles of Ayurvedic medicine. "What are these?" the inspector probed. The little bottles looked strange, and he called for another inspector. A delay. Swamiji's disciples became perturbed by the petty-minded customs inspector poking through, sniffing, and checking the contents. The inspectors seemed satisfied. One time on the way home from India, I was bringing potassium chloride, Akadasi salt. They detained us overnight. White powder, it could have been some drug. But it was interesting how miraculous it was, because we were carrying a set of clothes for Los Angeles deities, and they detained us in LA. So we went to the temple and delivered the outfit. It was like the deity said, "Come, we want our outfit now." And it was just perfect. You see how everything happens magically in Krishna consciousness. Swamiji walked toward the him flowers. He entered their midst as a beloved father enters and reciprocates the embrace of his loving children. In every town and village around the world, 1968 to 1971, Srila Prabhupada 29, Unlimited Opportunity, Limited Time, Montreal, August 1968. Srila Prabhupada was in his room. He asked, "I might be able to provide a house if some devotees came there." Reticent, "That letter from your father is encouraging." "Yes, he encourages me, but he says he can't provide any place if we were to come there." Srila Prabhupada looked disappointed. "That's all right. It is up to Krishna." When we some letters in the back of the book, and I was looking at them. "Atheist Swami's book," Prabhupada said, "we have nothing to do with." I wasn't looking at his philosophy, Pradyumna explained. I was just looking at the techniques he used when he was in America. He wanted to go to Europe, so he had a rich benefactor, who went on a 6-week tour. I was thinking that there would be a Royal Asiatic Society in London. I think Thakur Bhakti Vinod was a member of that. "But where is Srila Bhakti Vinod Sangha Association?" Prabhupada asked. Well, Pradyumna continued, "Still, there are maybe Krishna in that Swami speech?" Prabhupada asked. "No." Prabhupada sat thoughtfully. In England, he would have no place to stay. Pradyumna might talk of influential persons traveling ahead and making all the arrangements. But where was such persons? Here was a shy girl who could barely speak up, whose father would not help, and Pradyumna reading an atheist Swami and talking of a Royal Asiatic Society, but nothing practical. Prabhupada had plans, though. He had asked Mukunda and Shamasundar to go to London and try to establish an ISKCON center. They had agreed and would be arriving in Montreal from San Francisco in a few. Saraswati, Prabhupada's own spiritual master, had wanted Krishna consciousness in Europe. During the 1930s, he had sent his most experienced sannyasi to London, but they had returned, nothing accomplished. It wasn't he had complained. Europeans couldn't sit long enough to hear Vaishnava philosophy. One of the sannyasis said, gambling and illicit sex. Impossible, Lord Zetland had replied. And the sannyasis had accepted this response as the standard for all Europeans. The sannyasis had returned to India. Vaishnavism would never take hold in the West. Prabhupada had faith that his disciples would succeed. They would help him establish ISKCON centers in Europe, just as they had in North America. Certainly, such success would greatly please Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Prabhupada told of a man who found a gourd lying on the road and picked it up, and then found a stick with a wire. And 3 married couples, Mukunda and Janaki, Shyamasundar and Malati, with their infant daughter Saraswati, and had begun the temple in San Francisco, where they had had close association with Srila Prabhupada. They had helped Prabhupada introduce kirtan, prasadam, and Rath Yatra amongst the hippies of Haight-Ashbury. Now they were eager to help him introduce Krishna consciousness in London. Prabhupada asked the 3 couples to remain with him in Montreal for a week or 2 so that he could train them properly conducted only by pure devotees, not by professional musicians. Yet, if Prabhupada's disciples became proficient in their singing, Londoners would better appreciate Krishna consciousness. The thought of these devotees preaching in England made Prabhupada ecstatic. With their kirtan as delighted, willing helpers, in the daily kirtan rehearsals, Prabhupada taught the devotees to chant Hare Krishna and other devotional songs, beginning with a slow tempo and building gradually. He would regularly interrupt and have them begin again, listening carefully as Yamuna led the chanting. Prabhupada would stop her at times to correct her Sanskrit pronunciation. After 2 weeks in Montreal, the London party came together for a final meeting with Prabhupada. He was sending them to start a center in London to fulfill his spiritual master's together for a final meeting with Prabhupada. He was sending them to start a center in London to fulfill his spiritual master's dream. The sannyasis, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had sent to London, Prabhupada told them, had lectured in a few places, posed for photos with lords and ladies, and then returned to India. But Prabhupada wanted his disciples to go out boldly, chant the holy name, and attract others to chant. Lord Chaitanya had personally used this method while touring South India. Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then that ecstatic person would chant the holy name and ask others to chant. And when they saw that person, they too would become ecstatic. When devotees chanted Hare Krishna, the people of London would hear the mantra, become devotees, and then enlighten others. Krishna consciousness would grow. The only requirement was that they filled his disciples with the same contagious enthusiasm applied with a story. In his youth, he had once seen a movie of Charlie Chaplin. The setting was a formal ball held outdoors, and off from the main door arena, boys had plastered glue on one of the benches, and a young man and his girlfriend came and sat down. When the young man got up, Prabhupada laughed as he told the story. His tails were torn up the middle. Prabhupada told how the couple had returned to the dance, unaware of what had happened. But now they drew stares from the other dancers. Wondering why he was suddenly attracting so much attention, the young man went into the dressing room and saw in the mirror his ripped coattails. Deliberately, he then tore his coat all the way up to the collar, returned to his partner, and began dancing exuberantly. Then another man joined, ripping his own coattails and dancing with his partner as if to compete with the first couple. One by one, the other dancers followed, ripping their coattails and dancing with abandon. By the conclusion of the story, the devotees in Prabhupada's room were all laughing uproariously, but finally their laughter subsided and the meeting ended. Not until the devotees were already at the airport did Mukunda, talking with Shyamasundar, begin to appreciate and marvel at how expertly Prabhupada had answered his question. By their bold, enthusiastic, confident preaching, they would attract people. Not everyone would immediately join in the dancing, as had the people in Charlie Chaplin film. The devotees might even be considered crazy at first. But they would be offering Krishna consciousness, the highest and rarest gift. And intelligent people would gradually appreciate this, even if at first they scoffed. By Srila Prabhupada's order, his London-bound devotees holding kirtan in public would present a profile quite different from the reserved profile of his sannyasi godbrothers. His godbrothers had imitated the British ways